Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into some really cool stuff today, going back to ancient China to explore the story of Emperor Qin Shi Huang.
Huh.
The first emperor of a unified China.
Hmm.
And get this, we're talking about his attempts to, well, defy fate.
Hmm. Defying fate. Sounds ambitious, even for an emperor.
Oh, it gets pretty wild. We're working with some excerpts from academic texts here.
Yeah, and they paint a picture of this ruler like totally obsessed with immortality, and having control. But then there's this prophecy. It basically predicts his downfall.
A prophecy. Oh, yeah, that's right. Our sources for this, they kind of read like an epic fantasy novel almost. Prophecies, mountain spirits, mysterious envoys, the whole nine yards. It all kicks off with this Qin Dynasty envoy. His name is Zheng Rong. And get this, he runs into this guy claiming to be like the representative of a mountain spirit, Lord Washan.
I'm already hooked, so what happens next?
Well, this mysterious dude, he gives Zheng Rong a sealed letter. It's addressed to Lord Haochi, another spirit, but this one is associated with water.
Okay, so mountain spirit to water spirit. Interesting.
Right. And the instructions are crystal clear. Deliver the letter, but don't, under any circumstances, open it.
Ooh, a sealed letter with a do not open warning. That's classic.
Makes you wonder, if you were Zheng Rong, would you be able to resist peeking? I mean, come on.
Probably not. But in the story, Zhang Rong, he's a rule follower, so he does exactly as he's told. Finds this specific catalpa tree, there's a marked stone, he knocks on the tree, and get this? It's like he's transported to a palace.
No way, seriously. That's straight out of a fantasy story.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And at the palace, the letter is taken from him. But here's where it gets juicy.
Oh, I bet. What happens?
Zhang Rong overhears the message inside the sealed letter, and it's chilling. The ancestral dragon will die.
Whoa. Okay, so we've got a death prophecy. Spooky stuff. But who is this ancestral dragon? Was that like a common term back then?
Well, the text seemed to suggest that Emperor Qin Shi Huang himself believed it was talking about him. He tried to play it off, saying it referred to, like, the ancestor of mankind. But the symbolism, it's pretty darn clear.
I mean, you got Zhu, right? That means ancestor.
Yeah.
Points to a founder, someone important.
Right, exactly. And then you have Long, or dragon, which everyone knows is connected to the water virtue. Remember, that was the element associated with the Qin Dynasty because of that black dragon sighting back during the reign of Duke Wen of Qin.
Oh, yeah, yeah. The black dragon, that's right. So basically, all signs pointed to Qin Shi Huang. But was the whole true dragon emperor thing like a common idea back then?
Actually, not really. You see, back then, the dragon, yeah, it was powerful and all, but it wasn't the supreme symbol. It's funny, on court robes, the dragon was only, like, fifth in the hierarchy of symbols, below mountains, and even, like, pheasant-like birds.
Wow, seriously. That's so different from how we think of the dragon today.
Right. It just shows how much these symbols and ideas can change over time.
So even though this true dragon emperor idea wasn't totally solidified, it sounds like Qin Shi Huang took this prophecy pretty seriously, especially considering his reaction.
Oh, yeah. He was definitely freaked out. He goes and consults with a diviner, and the advice he gets is, traveling and relocating are auspicious to avoid misfortune.
That's interesting. I guess it's like trying to change your luck.
Maybe, yeah. And this is where we see Qin Shi Huang's attempts to cheat fate really get going. He ends up relocating something like 30,000 families to Yushang, that's north of the Yellow River, an area bordering the Xiongnu. You know, those nomadic folks who were often causing trouble for the Qin.
Oh, right, the Xiongnu, yeah. I can imagine moving 30,000 families. That probably wasn't too popular.
Probably not. So maybe to smooth things over, he gives these families a higher rank of nobility.
Clever move.
Yeah.
So it's like he's trying to appease the spirits, control his destiny, and maybe strengthen his empire all at the same time.
Yeah, it's pretty multi-layered. It shows how intertwined belief, politics, and strategy were in ancient China. Really fascinating stuff.
It is. And speaking of strategy, we know Qin Shi Huang was obsessed with immortality. Do you think this whole death prophecy thing might have fueled that obsession even more?
It wouldn't surprise me. Imagine getting a prophecy like that. You'd probably be scouring the land for any way to avoid it, right?
That's a good point. And for Qin Shi Huang, that desire for immortality, it manifested in, like, all sorts of things. His extensive travels, his search for these mythical elixirs, and of course there's that incredible mausoleum he built, complete with the famous terracotta army.
Right. It's almost like he was trying to conquer death itself, both literally and symbolically.
Yeah, powerful stuff. But we'll have to dive into that more in just a bit. For now, let's stick with these attempts to cheat fate. because there's a lot more to unpack there. Okay, so we've got this emperor, right, facing down a prophecy about his own death. And he's taken some pretty drastic steps to avoid it. Makes you think, if you got a prophecy like that, what would you do?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I guess it depends on if you believe it, right?
True, true. But in Qin Shi Huang's case, we see some real anxiety about this prophecy. And it's actually reflected in his own words, like recorded in historical texts.
Oh, wow, really? So what do those texts tell us? Spill the tea.
Well, there's this Western Han text called Zhao Zheng Shu. He talks about Qin Shi Huang's last imperial tour. And during that trip, he gets super sick. The text actually records him, like lamenting, questioning if fate can even be changed. He knew he was going to die that year, but didn't know the exact month or day.
That's heavy. So it's like he's trying to run from his predetermined end. Almost like if he keeps moving, he can stay ahead of it.
Right, exactly. And this whole idea of outsmarting destiny, it pops up again later on, in a novel, actually, the popular romance of the former Han Dynasty. It's fictionalized, of course, but it suggests that Qin Shi Huang purposely delayed his travels for a whole year, like he was trying to game the system, thinking that pushing things back would somehow change the outcome.
Whoa, so he's literally trying to manipulate time to escape his fate. That's pretty wild. It makes you think about all those philosophical questions, free will versus determinism. Did Qin Shi Huang really think he could change things? Or was he just grasping at straws, trying to control the one thing you ultimately can't?
Deep thoughts, right? It really makes you wonder, how much control do we actually have over our own destinies?
Yeah, big questions, no easy answers. But looking at Qin Shi Huang's story, it gives us a way to explore these age-old ideas. Fate, free will, the desire for control, it's all there.
Speaking of control, we know Qin Shi Huang was obsessed with immortality.
Mhm.
I mean, who wouldn't be with a death prophecy hanging over your head?
Right. I mean, talk about motivation. It makes sense that getting a prophecy like that would send you on a quest for eternal life.
Totally. And in his case, that desire for immortality, it showed up everywhere. His travels, searching for those magical elixirs, that elaborate mausoleum he had built, the terracotta army. It's like he was trying to defy death on every level.
Yeah, it's almost like he was saying, even the emperor, with all his power, can't escape the inevitable, but I'm gonna try anyway.
What a paradox. It kind of makes you think about the legacy he left behind, too. Did he succeed in cheating fate?
Well, the sources don't exactly give us a clear answer on that. I mean, his reign wasn't super long, and he did eventually die, just like the prophecy said.
True. But his impact on China, you can't deny it. Unifying the warring states, standardizing weights and measures, the Great Wall. Those are huge accomplishments. They still shape China today.
No doubt about it. He might not have achieved actual immortality, but he definitely achieved a kind of symbolic immortality through all that he accomplished.
I like that. Symbolic immortality. It's a
Yeah.
powerful idea. So even though he couldn't escape death, his actions had a lasting impact.
Exactly. And that's something we all grapple with, right? Trying to leave our mark on the world.
Yeah.
To make a difference that outlasts our own lifetime.
Big stuff. But before we go too deep down the philosophy rabbit hole, there's one more detail I wanted to touch on. You mentioned those 30,000 families, Qin Shi Huang, relocated to Yushang. What do we know about that area? Why was it so significant?
Ah, yes. Yushang. It was located north of the Yellow River, right on the border with the Xiongnu. Remember those guys? The nomadic folks who often clashed with the Qin Dynasty?
Oh, yeah, right on the frontier. So moving all those people there, that had strategic implications too, didn't it? Like bolstering defenses.
Exactly. It was a smart move on multiple levels. By relocating people to Yushang, Qin Shi Huang was basically creating a buffer zone, strengthening the border against potential Xiongnu threats. And who knows, maybe it was a way to punish those who weren't exactly fans of his rule.
Ooh, multi-purpose moves. Okay, so we've got appeasing the spirits, trying to control his destiny, strengthening his empire. It really shows how these decisions weren't made in a vacuum. Everything was connected: beliefs, politics, strategy. It all played a part.
Definitely. It's a great reminder that history is rarely simple. These events, they're usually driven by a bunch of factors, all tangled up together, sometimes in unexpected ways.
And sometimes those motivations, they remain a mystery. We're left piecing together clues from the past, trying to figure out what was going on in people's minds. It's almost like being a detective.
Huh, I like that. History detectives. And just like detectives, we gotta be careful not to jump to conclusions. We have to consider different interpretations, acknowledge that our own perspectives can shape how we see things.
That's so true. And sometimes we just have to accept that we might never have all the answers. But that doesn't mean we should stop asking questions, right? Keep digging, keep exploring. That's what makes this all so fascinating.
Couldn't agree more. The pursuit of knowledge, it's a journey, not a destination. Every new discovery, every piece of evidence, it gets us closer to understanding the past, even if we never have the full picture.
Well said. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground today. Qin Shi Huang, his anxieties about this death prophecy, those attempts to cheat fate. It's a story that really gets you thinking.
It does, and I think one of the big takeaways here is this. Even the most powerful figures in history, they dealt with some of the same anxieties we face today. Fear of death, desire for control, trying to figure out our place in the universe. These are human questions that have been around forever.
And it's so interesting how he tried to escape death. I mean, relocating entire populations, searching for immortality elixirs. It really shows how much we humans want to control things, even when it seems impossible.
Yeah, that desire for control, it's pretty universal, isn't it? And for listeners, it's like, what would you do if you got a prophecy like that? Try to change your fate, or just accept what's coming.
Ooh, tough question. No easy answers there. But these stories, they give us a way to think about those big questions,
Yeah,
fate, free will, what it means to be human. It's all connected.
totally. And it's important to remember these sources we're looking at, they're not always like 100% factual.
Right. They blend fact and fiction. Like that whole thing with Zheng Rong getting transported to a palace after knocking on a tree.
Yeah,
Super cool story. But did it really happen? Probably not.
exactly. Got to use some critical thinking here. Consider the context, potential biases, the fact that stories can get embellished over time. That's part of the fun, though, right? Figuring out what's real and what's been added to make the story even better.
Totally. So, okay, we've got these sources, and they're not always completely accurate, but what can we still learn from Qin Shi Huang and his attempts to defy fate?
Well, one thing is, it shows us that even the most powerful people in history, they still worried about the same things we do. Dying, wanting to be in control, figuring out what it all means. Those are human concerns that haven't really changed much.
Right, so it's like we're not so different from those who came before us, even emperors.
Exactly. And another thing, it highlights the power of belief. How much our beliefs can shape what we do, even for emperors, even for whole societies.
That's a good point. Qin Shi Huang's actions really show how much a belief, even if it seems irrational to others, can impact things on a grand scale.
Yep. And it makes you think, how do we approach challenges today? Do we try to control everything, or do we kind of roll with the punches, find meaning in the journey itself, even if it's unpredictable?
Deep stuff. All right, so we've reached the end of our deep dive into ancient China and the story of Qin Shi Huang. It's a story that really makes you think, right? About fate, free will, our own desires and anxieties. I hope everyone listening has some food for thought after this one. Thanks for joining us.